Welcome to Black Health Matters with your host, Daryl Armistead. Welcome to Black Health Matters. This is a weekly video podcast that's distributed over a variety of podcast channels. You will find a new edition of this podcast every Monday. I hope to see you again and again. If you like the content that you find in this series, please like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, be sure to click the bell and be notified of future uploads. Black Health Matters focuses on health issues of the Black community, as we often have specific concerns that are not always reflected in mainstream health news. My guests will include Black doctors who are best able to address these concerns. If you have topics that you would like to be addressed, please drop a comment, and I will try to bring on a doctor to the show to discuss the topic. Now, today's show is right on time because August is National Minority Donor Awareness Month. We're shining a light on the need for more organ donors within the Black community, as there are more than 8,000 people who die each year because the organs that they need are not donated in time. On average, African Americans in need of a transplant wait longer than candidates who are white. Here with how you could save a life is Dr. Clive Callender, an American surgeon and professor of surgery at Howard University College of Medicine in Washington, D.C. He's trained in organ transplantation. He founded the Howard University Hospital Transplant Center in 1974. To increase the frequency of organ donation among African Americans, he founded the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program that we call Mottep in 1991. During the current academic year, he's continued his academic work as professor of surgery at Howard University College of Medicine. Dr. Callender, my good friend, was born in New York City and attended public schools there. He received a BS degree in chemistry and physiology from Hunter College and an MD degree from Meharry Medical School. After surgical training at Harlem Hospital, Freedman's Hospital, and Memorial Hospital for Cancer and Allied Disease, he joined the faculty of Howard University College of Medicine in 1969. After a fellowship in transplant surgery at the University of Minnesota with John Nigerian and Richard Simmons, he returned to Howard University to found the Howard University Hospital Transplant Center in 1974, a first among historically Black medical schools. He was only the third African American transplant surgeon. To enhance organ donation among African Americans and hence improve transplantation outcomes, he founded the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program, easy for me to say, which received $16 million in funding over 2 decades from the National Institutes of Health Office of Research on Minority Health. Since the beginning of the program, African American organ donation rates more than tripled. He was a leader in the fight against discriminatory policies and organ allocation. Authorizing over 100 scientific publications, he became professor of surgery and chair of the Department of Surgery at Howard University in 1996. He's been a national expert and spokesman promoting organ donation and transplantation among African Americans who suffer disproportionately from chronic renal failure. So welcome to the show, Dr. Callender. How are you?
Wow, what a mouthful.
Well, you've done a lot. It's very impressive, sir.
Wow, thank you very much. What an introduction.
Well, I think this is a great time for you to shed some light on Mottep, particularly since it's National Minority Donor Awareness Month.
Yeah, I would like to also highlight the work of 3 important Black men in the development of Mottep. Louis Sullivan, Congressman, who introduced my efforts to Congress, to Secretary of Health Louis Sullivan, who then identified John Ruffin, who then took me through the rest of the steps that allowed me to take my idea, Mottep, and actually get it funded for 2 decades. So I'd just like to highlight those people without whom I couldn't have done this work.
Well, absolutely. They need a shout out.
Good. Yeah. It's been an interesting journey to go from when we began, where 70% of the people on dialysis were Black, but less than 10% of the people who donated were Black. And so this then challenged me to try to do something about it.
Absolutely.
What is most interesting about it was that the group that identified the data that unmasked this disparity, actually, after they shared the data with me, they ran out of money and they couldn't help fund. So we went to Howard University, and it all began with $500 from Howard University.
All right. Well, that's a start, but it's not much.
I'm sorry?
That's a start, but it's not a lot of money.
Right. And wasn't discouraged, but with that $500, we were able to identify two very critical findings. The first was that when we started our crusade, a psychologist, Dr. Baton, worked with me. And we decided to go into the Black community in the District of Columbia and ask them why it was that Blacks were so unlikely to be donors, but yet needed organs so badly. And what we discovered with our $500 study was that there were 5 reasons why Blacks were reluctant to become donors. And these 5 reasons were: first, the fact that Blacks were unaware that we needed organs so much. They didn't know that transplants were needed more by us than any other ethnic group because of our predilection to hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. The second had to do with religious myths and misperceptions, concerns that in a great getting up morning when you go to the pearly gates, you don't have your organs, you won't be able to see your relatives who preceded you in death.
Oh.
We actually realized that it was the right and Christian thing to do. Christ came and died and gave his life to save us. And so it is the Christian thing to do, to leave organs and tissues in life and after death. So that was an obstacle. The third had to do with the basic fear that we would be used as guinea pigs once again. Our past history is not good along those lines. And so the fear of the fact that we might be used as guinea pigs again was a concern. That was the third reason.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth had to do with a concern that if I go to the hospital, they might declare me dead before my time, and I might have a premature declaration of death. And then the fifth obstacle had to do with basic concern about racism. You're going to take my Black organs and give them to white people. And so those were the 5 myths that existed in the African-American population of the District of Columbia. So we learned that the 5 reasons. Now, what we also learned at the same time was that there was a way to overcome it, because when we started this survey, only 2 of the 40 people we studied were willing to sign donor cards and become donors. But at the end of the 2-hour session, all 40 said yes. And so we decided that this was the modus operandus that we would use. And based upon a lot of John Lewis's work with SNCC, that community grassroots empowering the community would be a way to do it. And so we started the DC Organ Donor Program in the District of Columbia and the surrounding areas. This was so successful between 1982 and 86 that the Dow Chemical Company funded us to go across the United States to educate and empower in 22 cities that were predominantly Black and 4 historically Black colleges. As a consequence of this effort, we then were able to have them do a Gallup poll in 1985 before we started our work, and in 1990 after we did our work. And we were able to identify in that Gallup poll that the number of Blacks who were now aware of the highly successful nature of transplantation had tripled. And the number of people who signed donor cards and wanted to be donors tripled as well. This said to us, because of our success in the Black community, a community in which people said the Blacks would not donate, we identified the fact that Blacks would do. With this in mind, we conceptualized Mottep with the concept that if it worked in the Black community, it would work in other ethnic groups. And so with that, Mottep was born, and with the funding that we got from the National Institutes of Health, we're able to identify Mottep sites in close to 20 to 25 cities across the United States. As a consequence of these efforts, the impossible had happened, and the miracle of Mottep and the rise from the bottom to the top of blacks being at the bottom of the donation list in 1990 when we started Mottep, and minorities only donating at 15%. By 2010, we had climbed to the top of the ladder with African Americans being the number one ethnic group that had donors in the United States of America. And the number of minorities that donated had tripled. So we were part of a very successful effort with this, what I call a miracle, because I believe that my faith in God and my belief that the impossible is possible led to me getting this gift, what I call a gift of God, that allowed this successful effort to come to pass.
Yeah, that's a power testament to, that's a amazing testament to the power of education. So basically, just educating people makes a huge difference in your effort to save lives.
Yes, and the other part of it is that it's not only just education, but educating the community. The thing we did differently with our group was we had people who received transplants, people who donated, and healthcare professionals go into the community and educate the community, and then let the community take the message and distribute it out to the rest of the community. And this community education and empowerment effort has been a tremendous success story.
Terrific. All right, you sent me a presentation. Did you want to cover that with my audience?
Well, I did because that presentation emphasizes National Minority Donor Awareness Month. We started this in 1996. And in 1996, it was the National Minority Donor Awareness Day on August the 1st. We selected that date because we recognized that the Black pharmacy group, the Black medical group, the Black dental group, and the Black nursing group all were meeting in Chicago on August the 1st. And so, with our message to go to all ethnic groups, we were able to identify and make some 300 million media impressions. And so, as a consequence, that was the birthplace of National Minority Donor Awareness Day. This was authorized by the Congress of the United States and by the mayor of the District of Columbia. And one of the things that is important to recognize, the number one problem in transplantation yesterday, today, and probably tomorrow is this shortage of donors. And that's why it was so important for us to become involved in this effort. And as you had mentioned earlier, because of this shortage, about close 22 to 25 people die every single day because of the shortage of these donors. And so this was an effort that we felt we needed to be part and parcel of its solution. And it thrills me that the Black people led the dynamic charge onward that has resulted in us going from the bottom to the top. Now, when we look at this presentation, it shows that we represented more than 50% of the transplant waiting list. Then we now represent more than 60% of those waiting for transplants. But now the good news is that we represent more than 30% of the donor population when we formerly were 15%. So I think this is something that is important to recognize. The other issue is that the message that we take to the community empowers them not only about how to become donors, but how to adopt healthy lifestyles. And this slide shows what we talked about in terms of how CEOP, which was the boilerplate organization, when they came to me, they ran out of funds, which is not unusual when you have a minority issue. People tend to run out of funds. So this was a surprise, but then again, thank God for Howard University, which gave us the $500 to really look into it and share the message to the Black community. And once we shared the message to the Black community, it made a profound difference, as the next slides tend to show. And this just shares the story that I shared with you earlier, and how we were so successful in and identifying and understanding why blacks are unwilling to donate, and number one, and number two, how to overcome it. And and this next slide just typifies the obstacles that we faced and learned to overcome. First, as you see the next slide, which demonstrates the focus groups that we did and the psychology group that worked with us to unravel this mystery that was baffling to many, but we were able to demystify it and come up with a solution to it. And the subsequent slides demonstrate the myths, the lack of transplant awareness, the fact that the communities were unaware of the fact that we needed transplants so much because of our predisposition to hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. And then the second one, which is the religious myths and misperceptions, forgetting that it's a new heaven, a new body, a new earth. And so you can't take your organs to heaven, so you might as well leave them here. And then the third one, which the fear of premature declaration of death. Many of these still exist. We've worked hard to try to overcome them, but many of them still exist, and we have to keep educating and empowering to reemphasize these. Medical distrust. Now, that's something that probably is less today than it was yesterday, but it's still pretty high among the issues that remain in place today, and we have to overcome distrust. After 400 years of brainwashing, it's tough to overcome it overnight. And so we've been working hard at it. And then racism is alive and well. We're only one race, but it's still alive and well. That people are put down because of their complexion. And this is something that education and empowerment will allow us to do better at. Of course, it also requires that all ethnic groups become aware of that, of racism, because we need to understand that we're all equal. We're all the same one race. We're all Homo sapiens. There's only one race, human race, Homo sapiens. And now, one of the things that is sad to identify is look at how far the transplant waiting list has grown, from 16,000 in the 80s to up to over 115,000 today. So that this just dramatizes and emphasizes the importance of the need for transplants and the need for donors. And the next slides emphasize that the disparity that exists between the number of transplants we do and the number of people who need transplants. As I mentioned before, John Lewis and his work with SNCC and his grassroots effort was what we used as our model to develop Mottep and the community education and empowerment effort that we talked about earlier. And I think we talked about the DC Organ Donor Program and the Dow Take Initiative Program. It was interesting that the Dow Chemical Company became involved because they had Agent Orange, which had killed many of our veterans, and they needed some positive PR. As a consequence, they funded us to go across the country to help develop the Dow Chemical Company Take Initiative Program, which eventually became Mottep. The next slide just detail how we started in the District of Columbia, and it was so successful that we moved on to take this effort to 25 cities across the United States, as well as 4 historically Black colleges. And then we were fortunate in that the Dow got a poll objectified all of this, and that made our job so much easier when the data demonstrated the success of our efforts. So this then led to us conceptualizing Mottep. It's interesting, along the road, there are many people who felt this is an impossible task, including me. But with my faith in God and willingness to move forward with an idea, In spite of my negative thoughts and other negative thoughts, the miracle of Mottep still came to pass. And the beauty of Mottep, as you see in the next slide, is related to the champions. And I'm proud to say Black champions who helped us fund Mottep, because almost every effort you have that you need to go forward with requires some funding. And this funding was provided to us by the Congress of the United States and the National Institutes of Health, all based upon the three pioneers who helped us. John Ruffin is still alive and well, and Lou Sullivan is still, who was the Secretary of Health, is still alive and well. Louis Stokes died last year. He was a great champion for us. And this slide shows that our target audience, that we started with Blacks, but our target audience was every ethnic minority group. And we went across the United States from New York to Hawaii, involving all ethnic groups, the Native Americans, the Latino Hispanics, the Asian and Pacific Islanders, the Alaska Natives, and of course, African Americans, with whom our efforts began. We had, of course, the next slide showed that our mission was to reduce the number and rate of ethnic minority organs needing organ and tissue transplants, so that, yes, we wanted to increase donation rates, but we also wanted to decrease the incidence and prevalence of end-stage renal disease and the associated diabetes and hypertension and obesity by emphasizing the creation of healthy lifestyles and eating behaviors that are necessary to decrease the inordinately high incidence. We have more diabetes and end-stage renal disease 4 times as often as other ethnic groups. And so any effort that does not also educate the community how to change and adopt healthy lifestyles is not addressing the entire problem. And so this then led us to go across the United States and the emphasis was on utilizing culturally sensitive and ethnically similar community volunteers with hand-on involvement, using the appropriate languages, as well as the recognizing that the messengers needed to be able to be very sensitive. And without that, it didn't matter what complexion you were, but it mattered most that you culturally similar and sensitive and spoke the language of the community that was involved. And so therefore, we emphasized a twofold solution: prevention and intervention. And we were the first to actually combine those two. Initially, people were doing the intervention and wanted to increase donation rates, but weren't doing an ounce of prevention, which is worth a pound of cure. And that was what made our initial efforts so unique. And we then launched a program in 2001 that said, love yourself, take care of yourself, adopt healthy lifestyles, because this is essential for us to go forward and to decrease the prevalence and incidence of diabetes, hypertension, and obesity, where we take the lead, unfortunately. And so this slide shows the 5 issues that are greatest in terms of engendering the need for transplantation: the diabetes, the hypertension, alcohol, substance abuse, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, and obesity. And these are the diseases and behaviors that need to be addressed as we try to overcome the minority predisposition to needing transplants when our organs have failed. And so this then led us to try to create innovative and creative opportunities, such as National Minority Donor Awareness Day, which later became week and now is a month, because we think that some of these efforts, with all of the involvement of the players, have led to us going from the bottom to the top. And we are certainly proud to share that with you, that blacks are now, at least between 2010 and 2017, blacks were the number one ethnic group above whites and other ethnic groups in the United States of America. And we proudly share that information. And I think uh, one of the things we learned about it, and it's important if you're going to do work like this, is you have to have objective data from the beginning and objective data in the middle and objective data every step you go. And so what we were able to do was to identify actually the markers along the way. One of the things that we emphasized was going from awareness to action to opportunity to because it's not enough to be aware of it. That's just the beginning of it. You really have to have behavioral changes. And that's what we focused on. And all the next slide do is point to the data with a consequence of Mottep sites. After the funding ceased, we went from 20 some sites down to 7 sites. And that's how we function now. But the thing that I believe that has been most important is the grassroots model of community education and empowerment that to this day still remains, and that face-to-face, which is, of course, affected in a negative state by COVID-19, because it forces us to create innovative ways to overcome the distrust that has been engendered by years of abuse. And this, of course, is because of institutionalized racism, which causes people to put one race above another, in spite of the fact that we're all Homo sapiens. And one of the things we have to address, and it involves the eradication of institutionalized racism. A tall order, but then so was getting increasing donation rates in the minority population, but yet it did occur. And the next slides kind of point out that the numbers are dramatic in terms of the tripling of the donation rates in the minority community in general, and also especially in the African American community. You can see we've gone from 15% of minorities to well over 32% now. We've gone to organ donation rates from 8 organ donors per million when we started out to now up to 37 organ donors per million. So we've made some gigantic steps, but we wouldn't know this if we didn't have the objective data from the get-go. And we now have it from when we started and from where we are now, and we've come a mighty long way. And so that's what these slides show. The next slide, I think, really shows that what an increase. It's amazing. The numbers tell the story. From 8 in 1982 to 35 in 2002, and in 2017 it went up to 37. And so that not only the minority donors, but the blacks have tripled as well. The minority population has doubled, blacks have tripled in terms of organ donation rates. And this amazing story is a story that I'm humbled to be able to share with you, the fact that I was alive at the beginning and still here with you after all those years, because actually, you know, in next year will be, we started in 1991, and that'll be 2021. So we're talking about 30 years that we've been involved in this kind of work. And so that it's so fulfilling and thrilling to be able to see a dream that you've had from beginning to this point, something that I didn't think would happen, and nobody else believed it would happen, but lo and behold, it has happened. And this is something that I'm critically proud of. Also, the fact that the National Minority Donor Awareness Day, one of the events that helped make this come to fruition, is gone from a day to a week to a month as well. And uh, all of our work, I think, that is epitomized by the next slide, which shows in black and white what the number for blacks were in 1995, what they were in 2010, when we first ascended to the being the number one organ donor ethnic group in the United States, which has existed up until 2017. I don't know what the data show for 2019 and 2019 and what it'll show for 2020, but we take great pride in what it did show for uh, for the 8 years of 2010 to 2017. And I think that it shows to show that if you have a dream and you believe in it and you have faith in God and you move forward, that there's no such thing as an impossible dream. And I think that's what my life has all been about. The fact that if you believe, have faith in God, and work hard, there's no mountain that you can't climb. And I think that's kind of the Clive Callender story and the Mottep story. There are other aspects of what we've done in terms of helping the national organizations such as UNOS and Division of Transplantation to become more equitable in the allocation of organs. And these are other aspects of our effort that we are very proud of, along with this effort here. And I think that I thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to share this story with you to show that we can make a difference.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show, Dr. Callender. That's a lot of great information. I think that the black community is really going to benefit from the information that you're able to share today, particularly when we have a dual focus of prevention and intervention. And, living that healthier lifestyle and being able to love yourself, that is so important.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled that you would let me join you on your show. I'm amazed at how articulately you're able to express so many of those difficult terms. And
Well,
you
it
do
took a
it
lot
so
of
glibly and
practice.
so well.
Right. This is important. I'm sure that everybody in the audience knows people that need organ transplants, that are on dialysis, that have renal failure. Personally, this affects me as I have a couple of good friends that are on dialysis and need kidney transplants. One as a result of being on a ventilator from COVID-19 for 6 weeks, and his kidneys failed during that period of time. And now he needs a kidney transplant. So, these are very important issues. And really appreciate you, Dr. Callender. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
All right. So, like I say, these shows are uploaded every Monday, and we'll see you next time.